Elon Musk has initiated a hostile takeover of Twitter and is offering $43 billion in cash to make the purchase. This is going to be absolutely insane. Uh, as expected, the Twitter sphere is completely losing their minds over this. And it was interesting to watch, that's for sure. I had a provisional Twitter account that was up for about 3 days. And today I started laughing at all of the people freaking out about this. And now my account was deleted. When I say deleted, like outright banned, there was no warning, there was no suspension, just banned. No explanation given at all this time. No notification, like via email or text message or anything. I'm just banned off Twitter again. So this is interesting. Uh, we are in a weird state of affairs when it comes to the way information is used as a weapon. And I've been arguing that social media, that the main players are super weapons. Uh, they are probably more powerful than nuclear weapons in a different kind of sense. Nuclear weapons can destroy everything, utterly and totally, and leave the area of impact of detonation completely unusable for generations to come. But a super weapon doesn't necessarily destroy everything, right? So with social media being used as a super weapon, I would argue that Twitter is probably the most effective and prominent because you have government officials who are on these platforms. They use them on an official capacity. You have agencies, departments, uh, uh, you know, from all over the world who are on Twitter to inform their constituents, their citizens, on their policies, their actions, their daily goings. If you do not have access to social media, you have been effectively cut out of the conversation because this is how we communicate in the modern age. Now, obviously, a lot of people do just fine without using a Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, but if you want to be a part of the political discussion in any meaningful way, this is how you do it. So again, the leftists were freaking out that Elon Musk is initiated a hostile takeover essentially, and this is this is fascinating because he not only wants to take it over, he wants to make it private, meaning taking it off the stock market. So he would not be beholden to shareholders or anything like that. It would be an entirely private company in which he can do whatever he wants with it. And he absolutely wants to revert it back to a free speech platform. So let's read into this a little bit. Well, obviously, if you hadn't heard last week, Elon Musk bought something like 9% shareholder, or 9% of the total stock in Twitter, making him the single largest shareholder of the company. They offered him a seat on the board. He refused because the conditions, the agreement, the contract he would have to sign to do that would basically limit what he could do with it. He wouldn't be able to criticize Twitter and their policies and any of that anymore because he would be legally bound to make the company as profitable and successful as possible. The shareholders would basically be able to sue him. He's already being sued by shareholders because apparently he improperly purchased the stocks. He basically was past a deadline or something like that. He kind of just last minute did it, which is apparently illegal or at the very least improper enough that they have standing to sue him. I don't know that it's really going to matter in the long run if he actually does pull this off. Okay, so um, let's see, the world's richest person is offering to buy the company for 43 billion at $54.20 per share in cash. And he did file an FEC statement or a declaration. So this is an official declaration. And on his Twitter, he said, "I made an offer," and then he, shared the link to, the FEC or SEC filing. Musk says he believes in the potential of Twitter and that the social media company needs to be transformed. My offer is my best and final offer, and if it is not accepted, I would need to reconsider my position as a shareholder. So again, that's interesting because it's a veiled threat, right? It's a veiled threat because if he sells all that stock, and it's public that he's doing that, the value of the company is going to tank. Also, you need to know Twitter's, last I checked, this was hours ago, Twitter's value went up 15% after he declared that he was trying to buy it. So that should tell you something, that people are very interested in this. They are very interested in this because they understand what has been happening with Twitter. It is not what it was originally intended to be. It is now nothing but essentially a cesspool of the far left. It is ran by the far left. And anyone who has a contrary opinion or position to the far left, they get censored, shadow banned, suspended, and outright banned. So he wants to reverse some of this. Now, he also says that Twitter has extraordinary potential, and I will unlock it. I invested in Twitter as I believe in its potential to be the platform for free speech around the globe. And I believe free speech is a societal imperative for a functioning democracy. I 100% agree. Twitter said it has received the unsolicited offer from Musk. In a statement, the company said its board will carefully review the proposal to determine the course of action that it believes is in the best interest of the company and all of its Twitter stockholders. This is interesting because he is offering to buy it at a exorbitant amount of money, at a huge markup. It's basically, they can refuse, right? They can refuse to allow the sale of Twitter, but then you're going to have a shareholder revolt because Elon Musk is basically making them money, a ton of money. And even if he decides to take it off of the stock market and make it private, well, my understanding is all those assets, all those stocks have to be paid out. Okay? So they would make a shit ton in profit. Not allowing this sale, I believe that the shareholders can hold some kind of meeting. There's a term for it, whatever the legal term is, some kind of a shareholder referendum, and basically have the board ousted and replace it with a new board, and basically with the express position that they have to sell the company. So this is not a done deal, but it's going to be very difficult for them to refuse this offer. This is a huge deal because Twitter is probably the most consequential platform for political speech. Okay, I would argue that it is significantly more important than Facebook. Facebook is now a boomer platform. It is mostly people over the age of 40 that are on it, and anyone below that age typically just doesn't use Facebook anymore, because who wants to be on a platform when your parents or grandma and all your whole family's on it, getting in your business? That's one of the main reasons I left. I had grandma telling me, "Stop cussing, Andrew. You shouldn't be doing that." And it's like, this platform. I was here, a decade before you, grandma. I didn't tell her this, of course, but I'm thinking I could say whatever I want, and I'm not going to be, bullied or whatever by family to try to censor my speech, let alone anyone else. So let's see. This article is not very big. Musk's offer of $54.20 per share is 38% more than the value of Twitter stock the day before his investment was publicly announced, and it's 18.2% higher than Wednesday's closing price. Twitter stock went up more than 2% in the early trading Thursday morning. And again, it went up 15% a couple hours ago. I can only imagine how much more it actually went up. So I want to move this to Twitter. Share Twitter. That's his tweet. He made an offer with 500,000 likes, 75,000 retweets, and 23,000 quotes. Now, I don't really know that a lot of people are commenting much on this. Right, because I got banned. I really need to sign out and should be able to see more. Oh no, I do have to sign in, don't I? Just even view it. Well, that's annoying. Hold on one second. Let's see what the latest. Trying to get some good English tweets about this. Someone says, fuck Elon Musk. There's a lot of Twitter blue check marks saying fuck Elon Musk too, by the way. Jeff Jarvis, today on Twitter feels like the last evening in a Berlin nightclub at the twilight of Weimar, Germany. Bro, these people are insane. These people are absolutely insane. It says, this man is comparing Elon Musk buying Twitter to the collapse of Germany. Unimaginable levels of pretentiousness. These aren't really good tweets. Let me see if we can go to the top. People saying they will leave Twitter if Elon buys it. Oh no, anyway. It's kind of like people just can't comprehend that sometimes they're not right. And really, most of the people that are freaking out are the left and far left. It's because they knew that they have dominated this platform. They took it over through their activism and bullying and rioting and, murder and all this stuff. Fraud, corruption, all of these different things have been happening over the last 5 to 10 years. And now somebody is just like, this is the only way to really do it. You can't regulate it. We've been trying to regulate social media companies for at least 5 years. At least 5 years now, and there is no traction. There's no political will in Washington. It's pointless. These politicians just bought out. But now, somebody who has the money and values the concept of free speech just decides, hey, this might be the only way to do it. Paul Joseph Watson said, the meltdown if Elon pulled off the unlikely coup of buying 100% of Twitter would rival the reaction to Trump's election. NPCs, beard splainers, pronouners, alphabet people, soy jacks, blue check journos would all be in utter hysterics. Would be the funniest thing in years. They're doing it now, and it's not even official yet. Okay? And this person, Michael Quinn Sullivan, says Elon Musk is worth $302 billion, nearly twice the second richest man. Twitter has a market value of $37.6 billion. If Musk bought Twitter, even if the value dropped to $0, he would still be the richest man in the world. But if he owned Twitter, it'd be wildly profitable, and that's kind of the point. It's like he can't really lose here. Okay? Even if he's so stupidly rich that if he lost the how much did he say he's offering? $43 billion for whatever reason, it just some people are speculating he might just delete Twitter. It's possible. I doubt it. He would still be the richest man in the world. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, it's a win-win. And he is as far as I like to talk about this, he is like one of these legendary hero characters that you see throughout history. And before you freak out and be like, oh, roll your eyes, oh, here we go, he's sucking Elon's dick. Like, no, relax, hold on, let me explain. Elon Musk is like our generation's is a fictional character equivalent would be something like a Tony Stark or a Bruce Wayne, except the only difference is he's not like one of these, overly arrogant assholes who is doing things like they do, like in their movies and cartoons and comics, right? He's the closest thing we have. Stupidly wealthy. He's a pioneer in space travel, getting us leaps and bounds because NASA and all the other different agencies would just suck. The other world agencies really suck at doing this. But his companies are the ones that are pushing the limits, revolutionized our use of rockets and stuff. Now we're able to use re-entry. We could save the rockets, cutting the costs of space travel. All these different things he's doing. Okay. And if he's able to pull this off, he may actually save our republic. And I don't think that's an overstatement, because people value Twitter more than they value their personal relationships. And I'm not exaggerating, okay? I'm not exaggerating. People trust their Twitter clout, how many followers they have, how much their reach is. They have more faith in that than the U.S. dollar, and I mean that seriously. In all honesty, these people believe in this stuff. So imagine you get 100,000 followers on Twitter, right? Your reach is astronomical. It means you probably get 1 million impressions, which just basically means somebody scrolled through. They may or may not have seen your posts. But it magnifies exponentially at that point, and you pretty much always just go up. You're always going to be able to have a viral tweet, essentially, when you get to a certain threshold. And it's people value that. And you can take that anywhere. You can lose your job, but you'll be like, well, I have 100,000 Twitter followers. Somebody will hire me. Somebody will do something with that. Hell, advertisers. It's just like Instagram, right? Once you reach a certain threshold, it's like, oh, all of a sudden you're worth money because you have eyeballs on your content. Same with YouTube. These things matter in the modern world now, and it sucks because the average person's never going to have that, right? But it's the new elite status. It's worth a lot more than money in some instances. So, Fiery Waco says Elon should auction off all the blue check marks. Let's see how much they like them. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point too, because people have been talking about for 10 years at least a way for you to get verified by paying for it. Well, I don't know that I would necessarily like that or think that that's a good idea, but I think there should be some kind of a threshold, right? If you have a certain amount of followers, okay, let's just say 1,000, and we can go from there. And maybe you put in $100 or something for like a Twitter premium, which I guess Twitter Blue is what they call it. You should have a like jump to the front of the line to get verified. You can apply for verification, just anyone, but it's irrelevant. right? It's a status. It is uh, a stamp of approval by the platform. Let's be very clear about that. Now, let's see. This one is talking about Elon Musk and his wealth, how it exploded 1,000% over the last 2 years because of COVID policies, essentially. Well, yeah, because the government shut down the economy, and only the big major corporations were able to stay open. But basically, all the top people, their wealth exploded. Conspiracy theorists, Noel Castor comedy. It's such a coincidence that Elon Musk tries to buy Twitter around the same time True Social fails. Like, dude, he had nothing to do with True Social. This person, Elon Musk, threatening to tank Twitter stock if they don't accept his offer. Financial terrorist. It's like they do all the same stuff that they're like freaking out about. Okay? They do the same things. In fact, they're constantly projecting it, right? They're the ones who do it, but then they blame everyone else for doing their crimes. So I don't like I just laugh at these people. Now, this person, the BS detector said with a Guy Fawkes mask says Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter is triggering the same people that told us to leave Twitter if we didn't like it. And that's probably why this account got banned, because I was telling people bye. Like, they were like, I'm going to leave. And I said bye. Or I told them cry harder. I told them, if you don't like it, you could go start your own platform. And, magically my account's gone. It's deleted now. So, uh, Jimmy Dore. I love Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore says, in quotations, I'm leaving Twitter because I'm scared that if Elon Musk buys Twitter, he will protect free speech rights of people I don't like and won't censor enough. Censorship is what everyone wants. I mean, it's what every tweet that I'm allowed to see wants. Exactly. Exactly. They are mad that they're not going to be able to censor people who have opposing views to them anymore. And of course, you know what happens. It's the oldest story in the book at this point. You post something in opposition to somebody, and they flag it and report it as hate speech. They flag it as harassment. Simply disagreeing with somebody is harassment now. Anything that is outside of the legacy media narrative, the official narrative of government or the medical community or anything like that at this point, you get banned for that now on pretty much every major social media platform, because they say it's misinformation, that can cause potential harm. It's like, so since when were you not allowed to just be wrong? Like, imagine that. Maybe you're just wrong, okay? So we're not allowed to be wrong anymore. We're not. You weren't. And I mean, I think that's even worse than saying that we don't have the. We're not allowed to just have a differing opinion. Even just simply being wrong gets you banned. It could be entirely by accident, or maybe you didn't do enough research or something like that. But this is. Elon Musk doesn't have the liquidity to buy Twitter, but he all but admits it in his filing. He also didn't secure the financing to do this before making his offer. This is a joke. He's trying to create plausible deniability that he's engaged in an illicit pump and dump scheme. I disagree. Well, I disagree with the second half, but yeah, of course he doesn't have 43 billion in cash. No, he would have to liquidate assets to do that. I think that's kind of obvious. A lot of these leftists are saying it's like illegal what he's doing. This rainbow extravaganza is saying that Rupert Murdoch has Fox News, Jeff Bezos has Amazon, Elon Musk wants Twitter. Do you see our problem? The richest men in the world, richest men on the planet control almost all media. Is anyone else worried? I mean, he could definitely list off a lot of the left and far left people who own these major social media companies, like Mark Zuckerberg. I think that's kind of important, that kind of stuff. Look at this one. Breaking. Elon Musk has decided not to solve world hunger 8 times over because he would rather buy Twitter for 40 billion instead. Um, I've talked about that one before too. Is like, yeah, we have the resources easily to solve world hunger. By solving it, right, we can redistribute wealth and resources all over the planet, and everyone would never go hungry ever. Well, at least temporarily, right? Up and until people start realizing that the wealthy countries like America, we'd have to be taxed like 90% to actually pay for that. We'd have to be taxed like 90% to pay for that. For us, we'd be lower down to the general world standards. And I guarantee you, somebody who's making, let's just say, 50,000 a year is not interested in paying, most of their salary to people around the world that they've never met, don't even know their faces, their names, anything. It's not going to happen. But let's see. Elon brings back all the suspended accounts. That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. Um, here's what I think would happen if he did decide he was going to do, like, it gets bought. I think it would be like different tiers. First, he would do the most high profile people immediately. Donald Trump would be probably the first person he reinstates immediately, no questions asked. Then it would be general politicians that have been banned from Twitter. Then it would start going down the list from there, right? High profile political commentators, comedians, whatever. And it would just keep going down the list until it gets down to the average person. Well, the record shows that we banned this person for hate speech. Well, I'm automatically reinstated. Hate speech isn't illegal, so why would you ban it? Now, this again, the whole concept, they're like, oh, you could harassing behavior. It's like, dude, there's a block button. If you don't like what somebody's telling you, you block them. I don't block anyone. I just don't. I just ignore it. I don't even mute people, to be honest. They have all these features available to you. You can what do you call it? You can mute a conversation. So if you get you reply to somebody's tweet and it blows up, like you have all these different mentions and all these people are arguing back and forth, not even talking to you anymore. You could just mute the conversation and it won't blow up your notifications. There's like so many different things they could do, but no, they don't want that. They want the power and the control. They want to control your speech. They want to control your speech because they're authoritarians. Now they're freaking out, claiming that Elon Musk is going to be the authoritarian. They say that he is going to be the authoritarian and he's going to tell us, he's going to make us do all these things and tell us how to think. And really? Is that what's going to happen? Or is it going to be a more hands-off approach? You're allowed to speak your mind as long as it's legal speech. What's not legal speech, what is allowed on Twitter, right, is if you're a far leftist like Antifa, their accounts are, just yesterday, their accounts are still active, obviously, and they were openly calling for violence for that police-involved shooting. I honestly don't remember where it was. But there was a riot last night because of it. Weather is warm, it's getting hot again, just like clockwork, Antifa's at it again. And they're allowed to do that. I actually reported the tweet because I wanted to get that documentation. I want to see it. And they got back to me and said, "Thank you for your tweet or your reporting of the tweet, but it doesn't violate our rules." It's like, that's interesting. Openly saying burn that shit down to the ground is very obvious what they're talking about in the full context of the whole tweet, but that's allowed to be on Twitter, right? So what would happen then? That's not legal free speech because you're advocating for violence. You're openly asking for people to commit a crime. That is a bannable offense. Now, me personally, I like a warning system, right? Like a 3 strikes and then there's a suspension period. This idea that you are banned for life is essentially It is life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's the argument I would give for that. That's the argument I would give. And is it really justified, considering that Twitter and all these other social media platforms are integral in the free speech of our society? This one says, Carla Sands, Elon Musk is our last hope for free speech on the internet. I mean, we've tried everything else short of violence. I know people, you're gonna go to war over Twitter. I'm like, dude, what do you not understand? Like, you clearly don't understand if you don't think that this kind of stuff is valuable, right? We're in a fifth generational warfare period. The information war is the war. What's happening in like Ukraine and Russia right now? Yeah, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are dying. Okay, but the greater war is informational. Here's another one. Elon Musk could solve world hunger, but he's trying to ruin Twitter instead. Luke Radowski, love this guy. Happening right now with Elon Musk, and it's a meme. Twitter is a private company; it could do it at once. I'm assuming he's supposed to be a leftist. Elon Musk face, yes. And then, because he's gonna buy it, right? It would be a private platform, like freaking out over this. It's hilarious how when anyone who opposes them does this stuff or is trying to counter anything they're doing, they lose their minds. They lose their minds. Let's see. Let's get into more of these chats. Amazon is not a social media. I agree. Night Fox Gaming says, Elon specifically said if they could figure out how to solve world hunger, he'd pay for it as long as there was transparency for each dollar spent. I do believe, I think you're correct. I think there was a conversation on that. And Elon is a very interesting person because of the way he explains himself, right? He's practical. He's super wealthy, obviously, but he's not afraid to spend things. People were telling him to... people told him to sell some of his stock to do something. I think that was part of it, the world hunger thing, like to feed people or something. And he did. He was like, he just laughed and said, okay. And then it was a problem, right? It was actually a problem. There was legal questions because he had to sell some of Tesla, and it dropped the value of the company because people were like, why is he selling stock? Like, it caused this upburst. It may not have been legal for him to even just up and sell some of his stock like that. So this is the other thing that a lot of people don't get. They just think, oh, because you are wealthy that you can just do anything you want with your money. It's like, no, there are a lot of regulations behind it. Like, there are limits to how much money you can just give people before it gets heavily regulated and taxed. Okay? I think it's like $10,000 if you're just giving a personal gift or something like that. It might be less than that, obvious. To be completely honest, I think it might be less than that now. But there are limitations to everything. Lance Corporal Veteran says, I don't believe Elon Musk is buying Twitter for the altruistic reason. It's basically a preemptive power move. He doesn't want Twitter to have their current power over the square of free speech and Trump him. I'm not gonna pretend like I think the more resources you acquire, the more you're able to do. I think that's been the story of history, right? The richer you are, the more you can build and shape things and based on your vision. So yeah, I think he's gonna make a shit ton of money if he buys Twitter. He's gonna be even more wealthy. He's gonna get up there. He may even imagine if SpaceX goes public, right? If he actually decides to do that, he'll probably be the first trillionaire because we're getting to a point now with our technology. It's kind of like, and the amount of population on Earth, it's like we kind of need to start branching out, right? We need to start mining the asteroid belt. We need to start seeding other planets, Mars specifically, have a moon base, and then maybe potentially even bases on Venus. Okay, it's possible. Venus is a lot more inhospitable, but and then we can branch out for there. Go towards the planets of Saturn and Jupiter. I'm sorry, the moons of Saturn and Jupiter. They have water. So it's like this dude he's doing something, right? And then we're gonna get into the other conversation in a second. Is just a precursor here is oligarchy and what that means for the future of America. Yeah, he would definitely benefit. He sold his stock as part of a thing about taxes. Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, he doesn't pay any taxes." Like all this stuff gets convoluted in my head because it's just constantly something happening, and yeah, there's so much regulation around everything. It's hard for people to understand this. Uh, what is this? Oh, all right. Let me just share this tab instead. There we go. Elon Musk on Twitter, and this was from November 6, 2021. Much is made lately of unrealized gains being a means of tax avoidance. So I propose selling 10% of my Tesla stock. Do you support this? 57% said yes, and he sold it. So, understand again, just briefly, unrealized gains is you're getting taxed on a thing that you own, that you're holding, okay? And the value of that thing increased, and the government is just trying to take it. They're trying to they're taxing the profit of a thing that you have not sold. Okay? You bought a car. Let's say you bought a car for $10,000. The economy is all fucky and crazy. Now the car is worth $15,000. Like, whoa, the value of a car never goes up. Let's say it did go up. The unrealized gain would be that $5,000 extra dollars that it's worth. You didn't sell the car, you didn't make the profit yet, but they're trying to make it now to where they'll be able to tax you on a thing that you don't have. Well, I don't have the tax money to pay for this unrealized gains. Well, I guess you have to sell the car. I mean, that's where they're getting at. They're basically trying to strip the wealth from people. Now, granted, to be fair, they're basically aiming that towards the ultra wealthy, but as inflation increases and the value of the dollar decreases dramatically, how long before the average American is now making something like 200,000 a year? Hold on one second. They late as hell today. They should have called me an hour and 40 minutes ago. Anyway, so yeah, this whole thing is interesting to say the least. The government should pay me for my unrealized losses. I mean, exactly. It should go both ways, right? How are you? It's so insane to me. At a certain point, though, let's be very, very clear about this. At a certain point, saying taxation is theft doesn't cut it. When they are trying to tax you on something you don't have, at what point do you say this is tyranny? So I'm just saying. So let's get into the other topic. People were speculating, even me. I was talking about this in my Discord group with my friends. We were talking about this a little bit. Oligarchy is basically a system in which wealthy elites rule a nation. And that's basically what we already have now. It's like I call it American style fascism. It's a mixture of a corporatocracy. It's a mixture of oligarchy. It's a mixture of fascism. It's a mixture of corporatism, technocracy. There's no term for this yet, but the way it's going is politicians they have power, they have sway, but these super wealthy elites are able to shape policy in ways that a government maybe is unable to directly, because of the power that these social media platforms have cultivated. Really, I mean, I wouldn't say they seized it. It was all voluntary. They cultivated this. Maybe there was some manipulation and wrongdoing, but we all chose to sign up for these social media platforms. And, the fine print was everything that we're seeing today. The problem is, or I should say the challenge is, people are slow to project the future on how these things could end up, how these things can go bad, how they could go south. Things that grow too big too fast, especially with technology, like a technological advancement. There's no regulation for it, right? So who's the stop social media, and how would you stop social media now? It's so integrated in our society. Even if you don't use social media, it doesn't matter. Everyone else around you does. There's businesses that run entirely off of social media. Think of any successful YouTuber, for instance. Their entire income and business. People have grown these huge studios. They have like 50 employees simply because they were successful at YouTube. They get 95% of their revenue from YouTube. Okay? If we were to just regulate this haphazardly, you're going to severely disrupt the economy. Now, you could say, well, how many YouTubers are actually living off of that money? How many people are living off of Twitter or Instagram or whatever? I guess it would be a small amount of people, right? I can't imagine it would be that many. But then you have to factor in, what about the traditional shops or the internet shops, right? The Etsy kind of things, where people who are making a product, they're making jewelry or clothing or something, and they're selling it online. And they have to advertise on these major platforms to get any traction. It's just the way it is now. It is the system. If your website is not advertised on Google, no one will ever see it. I did a video on this. And I posted in my Discord this morning. There's this fantastic video, 45 minutes, explaining basically like the internet is dead, and it's what happened to all the internet, why is the internet so empty, internet simulation theory, all this different stuff is going on, because basically the vast majority of the internet is censored now, because Google and Bing and Microsoft and all these different major corporations, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, control most of the internet. And especially Google, when you do a Google search, it says, oh, there's 1 billion search results. But then you start clicking on the other pages, right? And you go to the farthest page, it's probably bound somewhere between 30 and 40, page 30 and 40. And then you look up at the search result thing again, it says, oh, there's only like 400 search results. It's because they're censoring the entire internet. There's no way, unless you directly have that website, directly have the name of that thing, it's not going to pop up. So this is why this is super important. And then factor in, I'm jumping around too much. I want to finish the oligarchy thought. I think it's inevitable, I touched on this before in a video, I think we're getting to this inevitable state of we're going to go back to some kind of formal monarchy or oligarchy where these people have titles, essentially, right? They're going to have titles that are for life. I'm not just talking about Supreme Court, right? Their average Supreme Court justice is in office about 30 years. I'm talking about people who are celebrity, you're internet famous even, right? Maybe you're an Instagram model or something, but for some reason you have 50 million subscribers or followers or whatever it's called. And somehow you are so popular that you have this international clout or something. And I feel like we're moving into this space where those people have more power than elected officials. Okay? Now, wealth comes with that, right? If you're stupidly wealthy and you assert yourself like a Donald Trump did, right? Trump has been in the public limelight his entire life because that's him, a braggadocio type of guy, arrogant, and he likes the limelight and all that stuff. Narcissistic. But the second he got into politics, it was just like end of the world, like the world is ending. But literally a week before he got into politics, people loved him. He's Donald Trump, right? So my point is, I think that we're getting into this weird space where we might start having these type of feudalism, where we have these oligarchs and monarchs and people who didn't necessarily earn their position to rule over people. And something that we thought we eliminated in America. We shouldn't have rulers, right? We elect people to represent us. We have a representative democracy. I think that's gone. I think that's been gone. I think that we're just pretending that is something that is still in existence, and I don't think it is. And I think we're getting into that revolutionary period where it's make or break for America. We either restore America to its initial point of origin the way it should have been in 2022. I'm not saying like let's get rid of all the progress we made and slavery's back or something. I'm saying the basic core values that America was supposed to be founded on are all but gone. So I'm interested to see if people will stand up, or will they just be like, it's just easier for me to just follow. This is a damn gnat in here. Will it be easier to just do what they tell me, right? I will own nothing and be happier for it. I will live in the pod and eat the bugs. I will go into the metaverse, and I'll just sit in the pod all day. I will earn metaverse credits or whatever it's called by doing jobs in the metaverse. I don't know. I think they want a future like that, and it's terrifying. Night Fox Games says search engines these days aren't as freedom as they used to be. Of course, everything's heavily censored. I can't find anything that is a true to the 90s and 2000s search engine. It doesn't exist anymore. There are better ones, but for the most part, they just don't exist because they don't have the computing power to do it. Like the initial ones, like remember like Netscape Navigator and all those earlier search engines. You searched for something on the internet, right? And you can find it very easily because they didn't have algorithms or any of that crap trying to censor what you're able to see. You saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? You had everything available to you. Now it is like trying to fit a semi-truck through the tip of a pen. It's just like it's not possible. It's not possible. So they're blocking all of this, all of the information now, and you only get what they are allowed to tell you, or what they tell you. Yeah, exactly. And all this stuff is kind of like at a certain point we have to make that choice. Are we going to do something about this, or are we just going to complain about it, right? Obviously, what I do or what other people like me do is important, right? Somebody has to inform you about what's happening. But we're at the point now that people have been informing you about this stuff for a decade, and everyone's just like, oh yeah, I heard about that back in 2012, and yeah, this is crazy, and oh, this has happened, and they know everything that you're trying to tell them, but nothing gets done. So I'm not very optimistic for our future. I always remain some hope, or have some hope. I just don't know that this is going to be something that we are going to necessarily pull out of. But again, with the Elon Musk thing, it's a step in the right direction. It, I will hold my breath to be 100% confident in anyone until they actually do a thing. But if he does pull this off, it'll be a huge step in the right direction. We might be able to reverse some of the damage that Twitter has done to the politics in America, especially America. Especially America. If you're not even able to have a basic conversation about culture, society, or politics, then we don't have any of those things. We don't have a society anymore. It's already fractured. There is no cohesive reality. And I think that's one of the most important things is you have one faction who absolutely wants to dominate and control you, like fascists, like communists. Okay? They want a dystopian future where everyone looks the same, that nobody's able to laugh. And this sounds extreme. That's not true, Andrew. Like, I spend most of my day, if I am not watching a movie or playing a video game, I am on social media and I am looking at what these people say. They literally ban you for laughing on Twitter now. That's what I got banned for today. It's harassment. I guarantee you that's why, because I was laughing at these people crying. They were freaking out that Elon Musk might buy the company. Banned for laughing. Not saying anything mean, not anything that you could remotely say is really mean. It might be a little spiteful or maybe poking a wound, an open wound. But it wasn't overtly mean or nasty. And you get banned for that now. Night Fox Gaming says, I remember search engines like Ask Jeeves, Alta Vista, MSN, yep, Google and Yahoo and AOL. AOL does still exist. I don't know that they have a search engine. One of my main email is, yeah, they do have a search engine. I don't think it's fairly good. You also have to understand that most of the search engines, actually pretty much all of them at this point that are worth a damn, they're all basically funneled through Google or Microsoft Bing, and they're just kind of like an offshoot. They're not really their own separate, search engines. Let's just be really clear about that. But Netscape had a search engine. That was like in the 90s, late 90s. I remember using Netscape in school on those Apple computers. So the ones that were shaped like an apple, it was like an all-in-one, and they had like all these different colors for the case and stuff. Oh, bring it back. Brandon Hoskins says, I only use AOL for the chat rooms back in my Ho days. It was amazing because growing up, you could spend hours in there, and they had a chat room for anything. Like I was big into like role playing back then, like the whole story stuff, like sci-fi or fantasy stuff. And it would be fun. You just type out the story, and you're interacting with people live, and that was cool back in the day. Now I'm just like, just straight text when you have all these different kind of mediums to do that. You can do it in VR now. Now, granted, I wasn't big on the whole let's do role play chat sex. I thought that's retarded. And even in like Second Life, I wasn't big on having your avatar have sex acts with each other. It's so dumb, but you just have the real thing. Like there's so many hoes out there, they will just freely do it. Point is, yeah, like that was the golden age of the internet. Is you could find anything you wanted. And I'm starting to really sweat in here. I need to turn on the AC. Actually, I'll be right back. It's gonna mess up the audio. That's why I had it off. But all right, sorry about that. But yeah, I'm roasting in here. Really? Oh, didn't. So was Firefox the like next gen? Like they merged with Netscape or something? I don't remember. Like most of the stuff I don't remember because dude, we're talking 20 plus years ago. But yeah. Like all of this is super fascinating, and I just reminiscing of the past. It was amazing because your imagination really was the limit, right? And of course, there's hard limits to the internet back then too, because it just didn't exist. Like somebody didn't think about it. You just thought of a thing. Okay, you thought of a thing, and it wasn't available on the internet because no one put it on there yet. And then it was kind of like, well, I could put this up if I want. I had websites when I was in middle school. I was like 12 years old and I had websites. I had like 5 websites. Back then everything was everything was free, right? You had free emails. AOL was free to a degree, right? I'm trying to think. Some of these things you need an account, right? To sign on to the internet, dial up, you used AOL, or there was a couple other ones, but AOL was like the big one, and we mostly had AOL. And then you started having like broadband cable or whatever. Fiber optics was a little later, but they had cable connection. And then that's basically your phone companies would be your provider. But it was so fascinating back then. So fascinating. And again, your imagination really was the limit. Yeah, some things were a little primitive, right? It was based on whatever technology was available. But now, if I were to do a side-by-side comparison, visually, the old stuff looks like trash. It looks like garbage. It has less features and all of that, but there was something about it. It was real. You can feel it was real. And it wasn't like it is now. Pretty much every corner of the internet you go to is you feel this hatred, this vitriol, this bile. It just feels like a festering disease. And I know it's a lot, right? I'm saying a lot. But back in the day, even if you happened to come across something that was horrific because, there was no real hard limits in the internet, you might come to one of those sites where it shows, death or something in a horrific way. You could click away from that and, you pretty much had to want to find it. And occasionally you would have people who would drop you a link and you're like, I have no clue what this is, and you click it and it's a shock video. But now it's so different. Everyone is so desensitized, and not in a good way, right? Not in a good way. And imagine these kids who are sitting there on their phones all day and they're watching adult content. Adult content meaning not just sexual, but they're seeing violence and cussing and drug use and all this other stuff that a small child shouldn't be seeing. They have access to all of this now. Back in the day, there were some limits to the internet, right? It was dial-up. There was nothing but dial-up. So unless you were rich and had multiple phone lines in your house, there was a hard limit. You have a couple hours a day on the internet. Parents aren't home or whatever, and if they told you to get off, that's it. Now everyone is hyper connected. There is no, well, we only have nights and weekends for free. It's like, no, you have access 24/7. I do remember Goatsy. I was on there briefly, and if I remember correctly, it was a more free speech version of oh, no, Goatsy. Is that the one that was like a shock site? I'm thinking of Vote. VOAT, I think, was the one I'm thinking of. It was an alternative to Reddit. Goatsy, I don't remember, but I think that was a shock site if I remember correctly. But there were so many different places on the internet it was wholesome. For the first time in history, you had people from all over the world connecting with each other and talking and just interacting, and like, hey, this guy in the UK has almost identical experience to me over here in the United States, and we can be friends, and it's cool. We had friends in Australia, we had friends in Asia. There was a language barrier, but it was fascinating. And now it's like completely dead. Everything is quarantined, segregated, sectioned off. There is only a couple places left where you have unabated access to everyone, essentially. Like, I really do remember, I'm pretty sure it was like middle school when people started having these chat rooms. There was some of them that were video chat rooms too, and you could pop in with a video. The camera quality was less than 240p. It was really bad. It was basically taking a picture every second, so you're just like and super foggy and fuzzy, and it was really bad. But that is where it started, and it started expanding. It was just so fascinating to me, so fascinating. And there was a sense of wonder. The world, to me, the world didn't get smaller, it got bigger. I was able to see more of the world without leaving my house. It was fantastic. And now we're like sinking backwards in this weird dystopian way. It's like we have all this great potential, but we're not doing anything with it because these companies are trying to suppress us. They're trying to depress us. They're trying to medicate us. They're trying to control us. They don't want us to be free thinkers. They don't want the internet how it used to be, because people were able to just go and do their own thing. You'd be on the internet, and the way I remember it, there were days I'd be on the internet way too long, like 8 hours or something, and then I'd go outside and play, or go outside with friends, or go places, as I got older. And the internet was always a huge part of my life, but you still had interactions with people in the real world, and that's going down more and more and more today. And it's just getting worse with metaverse and all this other crap. Night Fox Gaming. Then again, back then, not every game was a toxic online experience like it is today. I can't remember any multiplayer games that were toxic. I want to say the first one I played that was really bad was Counter-Strike Source. And that's not even, it's old, but it's not that old. There's definitely, like, I want to say PlayStation, or maybe it was an Xbox that had the first interactive, like you could get on a headset or something and play with other players. But I never had that, so my first experience is really, these Steam games. And yeah, you had people cussing and saying racial slurs and stuff, and I was just like, this is shocking. But prior to that, it didn't really exist. Brandon Hoskins says, I remember when I got my 14.4K baud modem. You couldn't tell me nothing. Yeah. Dude, it was so much simpler back then. It was just so free feeling. And then social media came. I blame all of this on social media. All of it on social media. Facebook. Well, you had YouTube first, and YouTube, the beginning days of YouTube, like, what, 15 years ago? It was weird, random ass videos for the most part. Anyone who had a camera could just upload. And that was, most people didn't have a decent enough camera. And most people didn't even have the audacity to put themselves out on the internet. They just didn't think about it or weren't interested in it. And that has exploded now. And everyone wants a podcast. Everyone wants a YouTube channel. Everyone wants to talk about something. And, I don't think I'm that great. I think I can hopefully string together some decent ideas, but you have people who are significantly bad at speaking, who are making videos about nothing, and it's like, dude, I don't know, you should really be putting that out there. People put out their music, and everyone thinks they're a rapper now, SoundCloud rappers, and everyone wants to be a podcaster, and it's like, bro, you get like 5 listens. To be fair, right, you compare my stats, I have my explanation for that. I mean, you could see, if you go back in my channel history, the analytics anyway, you could see, the thousands of views I'd be getting, and now it's completely suppressed. So, but again, that's the point. It's like these algorithms are destroying everything. What else we got here? Nightfox Gaming. I would sit and play SimCity 3000 or 4 for hours, and absolutely, I still play them sometimes. Probably SimCity 4, I think. Might be 3000. At a certain point, though, like, some of these games, I try to go back and play them, and they become unplayable for me because I got spoiled on the latest, greatest, fancy looking stuff. And I get, people shit talk in my Discord group. They're like, oh, you have no culture or whatever, or you're uncivilized, or I don't even know what they say. They dunk on me for sure. And I don't know. I'm definitely a graphic snob. The more pretty it looks, the more likely I'm going to play the game. I'm just being honest. Sometimes some of the like lower graphic stuff, the stuff they're intentionally making retro, make it look retro, is absolutely fine. Some of them are really good games. SimCity 4 was a pinnacle of a franchise. Absolutely. And then you spawned all the Sims. I definitely played the hell out of Sims. It was just amazing. It was amazing. It basically gave you a simulated version of what God would feel like. That's why it was so addicting. And I know that's like, it might be blasphemous, but no, seriously, because for the first time you had this simulation where you could create a family, basically. You have your starting player. You can start with that. You can interact that player to they would go and choose a job. They would study and build up their skills or whatever. They can go find a wife. I think they actually had it coded. You didn't need cheats. You can have you could have same-sex marriages if you wanted to, and it was all normal. They couldn't have a baby, I don't think. Actually, yeah, they did, because a stork came or a delivery came in that game. It was family friendly, yet they would have what did they call it when they would? Was it woohoo or something? It wasn't snoo. That's Futurama. They would have something, and I think it was woohoo in The Sims, and they would go in the bed, and then like a cloud would cover, and it would censor it. You know what they're doing. But no, that game was crazy. It was crazy, and all these different add-ons and stuff you could get for it. It was woohoo. Okay, cool. Yeah. And me and my mom and my sister, we still use like Sim speak. Like when we're like Shana na na na, and we like when we were leaving, we'd be like tank, and we it was because it was so culturally impactful. So culturally impactful. And I feel like that magic is gone in this modern time. Yeah, there's some really good AAA games that come out. Something that's really really good, but it takes forever, and it's just not the same. It's like the soul is being sucked out of society, and I don't think people want to talk about it. But when you look at people, right, I seriously, I honestly am asking you to do this. The next time you're out in public, even at work, at a stoplight, grocery store, wherever you're at in public, look at people in the face. Look at their facial expressions. Look at their eyes. Look at their demeanor. Are they happy? Are they joyful? Are they enjoying their life? Or do they look sickly and depressed and soulless? I blame social media personally. I really do. I think social media caused all of this. I think this is part of the controlled demolition of society. It brought us to a point where, no one has really anything to strive for. And I remember having these long conversations in our my friend's Discord server about Star Trek and the holodeck. And I said, if we had the holodeck, this is all related, by the way, social media and metaverse and stuff now, as VR becomes the new thing. I said, if we had a holodeck or anything similar to that in any meaningful way, in the real world right now, it would be catastrophic. It'd be like world ending. Assuming the average person had access to it, it would just collapse. We would have to figure out a way to automate, because why would you work? Nobody would work. Why? What is the point of working or doing anything meaningful in the outside world if you can literally go into a fantasy environment and shape a world like your own personal deity, creating an environment and a world around you? Nothing can harm you. Nothing can hurt your feelings, unless you design it that way. It would be so addicting. It would be the ultimate drug. And imagine somebody is raised in an environment. They're raised in an environment where that's all they know is the metaverse, is the holodeck. They have access to that. They're not going to want to go out into the real world and do anything. What's the incentive? It's shocking. It's scary to me and shocking, because this is the where we're going unless we do something about this. It's like the Matrix, except instead of being conquered by, an AI, by robots, androids, whatever, the machines, we're doing it to ourselves. We're allowing these tech companies to start doing this slowly. They're colonizing our minds and shaping it in a way that it's changing how we fundamentally think. Most people don't think anymore; they just obey. It's terrifying. Mario Waco says, I played the original Tomb Raider. My first time playing a modded game turned into Nude Raider. Of course, I remember that. I think it was in middle school. It might have actually been elementary school when that was happening. And they had these like little game sharks and all kinds of things you could attach to it, and it lets you mod your game. Very interesting technology back then. Like, it was janky as hell, buggy as hell. It could break your game back then. And it was all like cartridge. Some of it was CD and stuff too, as it started, PlayStations and stuff. But was it Dreamcast? Was one of them? It didn't last very long, because I think that was the one that was buggy as hell, and people would mod it. It was crazy. You can mod it to where you're basically porting players or characters or avatars from other games and put them into other games, and it was so weird and buggy. It's just ripping them out of their reality and putting them in another. It's just insane. It was revolutionary stuff back then. Now we just have Fortnite, where it's designed that way, where every single character you can think of is in Fortnite now, and it's getting ridiculous, to be honest. Total Annihilation. I played Total Annihilation Kingdoms. That was my game. A medieval fantasy version of Total Annihilation. And the graphics were, oh man, they were total ass. Total ass. But it was so fun because, you can build up your military and do all this cool stuff, and, you had to protect your monarch. They're basically a living god. There was like 4 living gods, and they were each different faction, and they all had their own special abilities and powers, and it was so cool. And then there was expansion packs that did cool stuff too, and I miss those old games. Night Fox Gaming says you're talking about the Reginald Barclay syndrome, where the one Trek character was so dependent on the holodeck he couldn't socialize outside the holodeck. Right, and that's where we're going to start seeing that. I think we are already seeing that to a degree, but it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So it's a similar phenomenon to content creators, right? So for me, I'm in a super safe environment. I can turn on the camera and say whatever I want without, obviously I read chats and stuff, but it's super safe, right? There's no pushback or anything to any real degree. Like, people can cuss me out and all that, and it's not going to be the same as somebody sitting in a room with me. I'm not going to feel that hostility in the same way. So there's these other phenomenons that we don't take into account. So imagine that we're insulated by a camera, by distance, by the internet. Imagine that in the virtual reality, in the metaverse. And subsequently, it's going to revolutionize even more. They're doing full body haptic feedback suits, meaning somebody touches you in the metaverse or whatever VR, you're going to feel that. Your suit's going to tingle or vibrate or tense or do something to simulate somebody touching you. And you obviously already know where that's going. That technology is already out there. You can do long distance sex stuff, and it gets really weird. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a point when more people are going to want to be in these virtual environments, these fake realities, than the real world. Because what's out here for us anymore? If these super wealthy elites control everything, and we're being, constantly bombarded and kept down and beat down and, basically oppressed, right? The vast majority of people are going to be like, I'm fine. I'm going to go into the metaverse. I'm going to go into this virtual reality, and I'll just live there. The movie Surrogates was a beautiful movie. Some people really hated it, thought it was cheesy, but it's very, very prophetic. It's very prophetic. Think of virtual reality, but they're using like mechanical avatars. They're using androids that look like you. So you sit in a pod all day, in this VR headset, controlling your android body out in the real world. Beautiful movie. Highly suggest you see Surrogates. It's really interesting. And then you got the Ready Player One kind of thing, where most of their society spends a huge amount of time in this virtual reality, and they have the full body haptic suits and all that stuff. It's gonna get really weird, is all I'm going to say, and you're gonna have to start making decisions like giving people unfettered access to certain that person jogging is really distracting. I can't tell if it's a small child or if it's a deformed woman. I'm not trying to be rude. I think it's okay. It's a woman that just has a weirdly shaped body. Okay. I don't know. Whatever. Weird. Sorry. Distracting. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is we don't have the willpower to resist some of this technology. If you think addiction to alcohol and drugs is bad, like I said, wait until we get into. You could basically become a god. You could blame the Japanese for the VR. Yes, 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 yes. Of course. They are freaky, freaky people. Yet, they're not allowed to show it uncensored. To be fair, though, their censorship laws don't really make sense because they're notoriously the ones that have like the little black bar. You can see everything else but this tiny little black bar. It's like, but they're notoriously the ones who censor. You know, they blur it, and you're just like, what's the point if you can't see it? But anyway, I don't know. I just think we're in a weird place. And we have to take a real good look in the mirror and say, are we mature enough for this technology? And if we're not, nuke it. Like, figuratively nuke it. Destroy the technology. Unplug it. I mean, like, as a society, not just the individual, because that's what I'm saying, is like the individual is not strong enough. Because we haven't been, we weren't raised to be able to resist to these kinds of things. We weren't instilled with these values because these technologies were figments of our imagination. They were science fiction. We didn't think these things would exist, so we didn't have to think about it. It wasn't real. Now that it's here, it's like, well, shit. Now what do we do? Obviously, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens and where it's going. I am really concerned though because of like watching Twilight Zone and the Black Mirror and Outer Limits and stuff like that. But Black Mirror specifically, the VR type of stuff they have in those and that sci-fi dystopia show. They have these little tiny devices you just stick to your forehead, and it basically changes your brain waves to think you're in this reality. You're basically experiencing it through your brain. So there's no distinguishing between reality and fiction. And I think what it failed to account in that show is that why would anyone leave again? Now I think that there might have been people who are addicted to it in that show, but the main focus point was multiple episodes where people were abusing the technology in a way of controlling people. Extremely unethical behavior in Black Mirror on the VR type of technologies. It's shocking how far we've come, and I wonder, again, are we ready for it? I don't know. I would say we're probably not. But to wrap this up, again, Elon Musk, I fully support his move to take Twitter. I hope it works out. I hope I'm able to get my Twitter accounts back because they've banned all of them, even accounts that I use legitimately for like news broadcast stuff like Serious Science News was one of my Twitter accounts. They nuked everything because they were associated with the other accounts, and no way to appeal it. They claim there's an appeal process, but it's basically you say, hey, like, why did you ban me? And they just reject your appeal. There's no justice in that. So Johnny Mnemonic or Mnemonic, I don't remember how you said it, Mnemonic. Yeah, I remember that really bad movie from the 90s. It was one of the early Keanu Reeves. And yeah, it's funny, like the 80s and 90s, how they portrayed sci-fi was like these really janky headset devices that looked like somebody wasn't even trying to make it look nice, like jerry-rigged everything. And then the reality of now, 2022, like they're intentionally making everything sleek and sci-fi looking. So I don't know. I think Black Mirror is probably the most accurate to where we're going, and it's shockingly disturbing. So I don't know if there's anything else we could talk about in regards to this. I'm gonna definitely wrap this up here and wrap up my work day. finish some paperwork and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I really appreciate everyone watching. Those of you who did, everyone who was in the chat, as always, thank you. I prefer conversation over me just talking at a screen, talking at a camera. Being able to communicate with people freely without censorship, or at the very least, people who I'm not going to delete you because you post something that I disagree with. Yeah, that's really it. So again, thank you so much for watching. If indeed you still are, and I will. Well, I hope. I should probably start saying that. I hope to see you next time.